grade 12 geography learners feel so weird saying that geography. When have I ever presented a geography show? Well, today I am. I am Luni, and joining me in studio is Dave. How are you, Dave?
Hi, Luni. I'm fine. And the reason why you actually joined here is because you've now got experience and you've been promoted to do geography.
No,
It's only intelligent people that do that.
I don't think so. Hey.
Hi, learners. How are you? You keeping well? I hope you're interested in a nice, lovely lesson today.
What are we doing for the mindsetters today?
Today we're doing actually economic geography, which is people and needs. I like to start from the bottom.
All right.
And then we're doing settlement geography, also known as people and places.
Okay,
And
you
we're going
heard
to
it.
explore a lot of things on it. and
All right.
Hope we iron out all their problems today.
Okay, so it's people and needs and people and places. I heard that much. I hope you guys are ready to start this fun show. I'll be learning as well as you guys. While you're writing down your notes there, I'll also be taking in some stuff because I've never done geography in my life. So I'll be learning with you guys as well. Don't forget to hit us up on Facebook, on facebook.com/learnextra. You can hit us up on Twitter as well. Our handle is @learnextra. Remember, we do have a nice spring school competition for you guys. So what you need to do is that you need to tag or share the post that I will put on our Facebook page. Tag or share that post and write down your favorite number from 0 to 9, and one of those numbers will be a lucky number. We will stop the clock. Remember, the clock is our Facebook likes. The last digit of our Facebook likes is our clock, okay? So once you stop it sometime during this show, we will stop the clock, and then that will be the favorite number that's going into the lucky draw. Make sure you watch at 4 o'clock. We will announce the winner, overall winner for today on that show. So let's get to learning, guys. I hope you guys enjoy the show. And Dave?
Sure. Luni, just before we start, I just want to know, how do you recognize a geography person?
How do you recognize
A geography person. The learners may assist us on that. They have this intelligent look. Do you notice this look?
Not quite.
All those learners out there got it. It's the intelligence that shows in their
The game
faces.
face.
Hello, learners. As we said, we're going to do settlement today, which is people and places, and economic, which is people and their needs. Now, you should already know that it makes up section B. And it's what's nice, we're going to do a whole question on this today. We're not just going to do one section. We're going to show you how the 50% comes from settlement, which is people and places, and how the 50% comes from economic, which is people and needs. And that makes up 100 marks. Remember the hidden question or the forgotten question, question 4? Sometimes we just go 1, 2, 3. And even question 4 could be so easy sometimes, and we leave it out. So please, learners, a piece of advice before I start with this. You've got your 10 minutes reading time. Read through question 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then make your choice. Because sometimes you may find that the physical section may be more difficult than the human section or section B. So make sure you do that. Another thing that I found, the general pattern, is that learners, because the section can be read through and you can learn it very quickly, that you don't go over much past papers and you spend more time going over section A as a past paper. I'm going to go through this, and I'm also going to highlight various things that if you don't read the questions properly, there's a lot of action words. You can actually misjudge it and give the incorrect answers. So practicing with past papers makes a huge difference in this section also. But let's get started. All right? We are using the, maybe before I start, remember that there's 2 questions, 3 and 4 for this, okay? And you can answer both if you feel that that suits you. Okay, let's look at the supplementary paper here for February and March 2013. And the same system applies here. Remember, application, looking at the resource first makes a huge difference. Don't just go to the questions. There are sometimes questions which you can answer with hardly looking at the resource, but it confirms your answer when you look at the resource. So, as the examiner says, figure, and let me get my pen going. Notice all my shows, I love this color, Seems
What
very
color
nice.
is it?
Okay, which illustrates street patterns Okay, figure 1 illustrates street patterns. So immediately again, your focus, your examiner is saying he's going to test you on street patterns. Immediately that information starts flowing in your mind. Street patterns. All right, then they want us to match the street patterns in the figure with the statement below. So let's look at it. It says study figure 1. The examiner is not putting there for fun. We study figure 1 first. Immediately when we look at this, we see A, it's actually a roads leading out. All right. Let me get back to this. I've always made these things jump. Suppose in some cases I'm a magician. All right. So it roads leading or radiating outwards. So immediately from there, we can pick up that it's a radial pattern. All right. And all the characteristics that we studied now comes through. Okay. This one, we can see clearly the roads are meeting at right angles. It's sort of like a grid pattern, right? The roads are meeting at right angles, and it's a grid pattern. So immediately we get the word gridiron coming through, or rectangular pattern, all right? And this one has no sort of real shape. You've got some straight roads, some that's winding, okay, bending around, and immediately we can pick up that that is a irregular pattern. So we know our street patterns and all the characteristics that we studied. This one, you can't get lost. It may cause traffic congestion. It's easy to find places. It's easy to develop or extend. You know that one. This one has various routes leading to one point, but it's windy. You can get lost. So all those characteristics play in your mind. Now we're ready for the question. All right? It says, the first question says, a street pattern that allows for easy flow of traffic. And you knew already that this one has various alternate routes, etc. So it's definitely your irregular pattern. Irregular street pattern. All right? Let's look at the next one. The street pattern that radiates out from a central point. All right? We've already worked that out. Okay? That it's the first one. Now, Leonard, I'm writing this. If you wrote, sorry, that was your, let me just erase this quickly. If for the first one you wrote C, we'd accept it because it's actually showing you on top that A represents your radial, B represents your gridiron, and C represents your irregular. All right, and I think that's also on your memos. Okay? Let's look at the next one. We know now the streets that radiate out, and your answer is A, which is radial. All right? The street pattern that is characteristic of the CBDs of many South African cities, because remember, the city is easier for the city to expand. We need to use a pattern that makes it easier for the city to expand, so we don't have hassles. And we've already learned in our lessons that the gridiron pattern is easy to expand, and of course CBDs use the gridiron pattern, also known as the rectangular pattern. So it's B or gridiron. I'm losing my spelling today. Gridiron pattern. Okay? Let's look at the next one. Streets mainly intersect at right angles. The word right angles is the most important word there. And when we looked up, it's so easy to find that it's B that meets at right angles. All right, so it's the answer there would be B or gridiron pattern. All right, and the last one, streets that do not link up easily in this pattern, causing people to get lost. Okay, I know learners, when I was in class, they say it does not link up easily. Okay, and sometimes we learn that there's irregular pattern, all right, which is planned and gives you various routes, and there's unplanned irregular. All right, so that can confuse us. But I think we need to look at some action words here. People can get lost. And when you did irregular patterns, you knew that that was one of the characteristics. So don't look too deep into something like this and say, no, but it also creates avenues, etc. It can be effective. Okay, the diagram doesn't show. Look at the action words of cannot, can get lost, and you automatically know it's C. Okay? So even your low order questions does require some analysis. All right, let's go on to the next question. Remember these questions, guys, we cannot lose marks. Okay, now this is based on concepts. Okay, and that is why it's so important to not just have a reading knowledge of your notes, and some of us take that chance, learners. That's dangerous. It's also knowing your concepts. And again, I told you in many of my lessons in the past, know your concepts, know how to apply it, and apply it. The 3 rules. And I'll keep on saying this all the time. So, first of all, GEAR policy. Already you know GEAR policy is on economic redistribution. It's based on unemployment, trying to reduce that. It's creating funding schemes to help the country or the poor so that we break down that imbalance between the economically advantaged and the massive economically disadvantaged communities. So immediately we look at it here, and in this case, the examiner has made it very easy. Okay, if you look at the first words, all right, you find that it's growth, employment, and redistribution. You can work it out down there. There's your GEAR here. Okay, so the answer for GEAR is C. Multinational corporations, you learned already. The word multinational corporations is companies that have branches throughout the world. And this is quite easy. Companies that have branches throughout the world, and your answer is E. Trade, you know, we're exchanging goods for money or goods for goods. Okay, and that's quite easy down here, and obviously that would be A. Then the tertiary sector, the action word, services. Let's look for it quickly. Which one has services? There we are down here. This one has the word service, provides a service, and that would be B. A growth point, you've learned already in geography, an area which has potential and can be developed. Remember, we're dealing with all these things of the centralization and the congestion. We want to develop the whole country, so we're having those different growth points in different areas. All right, so look at this. An area identified for economic expansion. Learners, if we use the strategy like this and carefully look at it, and don't just look at the first one, but look at our options and look at the key words. In this first 2 questions, which is out of 10 and 10, we should not be losing marks. I expect learners to get 20 out of 20 for these 2 questions here. All right, if we look at it carefully. Okay, let's go to the next question. All right. It says study figure 3, okay, which shows a type of rural settlement. All right, it's actually a picture. Okay, so we look at it. Analysis is required. Don't just see it as a photograph. Just a photograph. Let me get on to the questions. Let's look at what we see here. And there's quite a bit we can see. All right, we can see a farmstead. All right, learners, it's just one farmstead. Do we see any other farmstead around there? Nothing. So we know it's a farmstead on its own. So it's isolated farmstead. Okay? We see the area as being quite big, the region of it being farmed, is quite big. All right? What else do we notice here, learners? That it then could be some form of commercial farming. All right? Now, I know this takes time here as I'm explaining it, but the more you practice, you understand, the quicker you will interpret questions or diagrams or resources. Okay? What else can we notice here? That the land seems to be very flat, isn't it? Flat land. And put your little notes, all right? Put your little notes there. Maybe I should have done it here. Farmstead. Okay? I put 1 here, so it tells me it's isolated. Flat land. I see the farm is quite big. Big farm or large farm. Okay, what else? I can see an ostrich here. Okay, good biltong for ostrich. All right. This one also looks a bit like an ostrich. I see trees here. Okay, trees, which could be used for fuel, all right, or for construction. So I'm seeing quite a bit in this area, all right? And I wrote my little notes. I most probably would have missed out something down here, but as we go to the question, we can work on it. So we know it's commercial farm, it's isolated, there's flat land, there's a big farm. This looks a bit like, if something is vague there, a water source or something, it looks a bit like that down here. We don't take a chance, we look at the more definite answers. And learners, remember, if you're not sure that that could be a water source, go with the definite answers first if they ask you for factors. If you don't find the definite answers, then make the assumptions but do not leave any blanks. So let's go on. Name the type of rural settlement shown in the photograph. Now I know we didn't speak of pattern, which when generally your textbooks talk about pattern, they talk about isolated or nucleated, or your textbooks talk about shape, which is linear, crossroads, or whatever, star-shaped. It doesn't mention that. Now, how do we approach this question? Because you've been learning that. You look at what the source is showing you. And does the source show you shape, whether it's linear or form, whether it's linear, stellar shape? It doesn't show you there. It shows you a isolated farmstead. So when it comes to these questions like this, because this can confuse learners, I know pattern and shape does. When you look at it, see what you see in the diagram. And obviously when you look there, it's an isolated farmstead. Okay? Isolated farmstead. Now people, it's very, learners, it's so important to make sure you recognize that, because there are lead-on questions, and in economic and settlement, there are a lot of lead-on questions. So if you get this wrong, you're going to lose a lot of marks after that. So be very, very careful, learners, because let's look at the next question. All right? State two advantages. Let me get my pen again. 2 advantages associated with these rural settlements. Now imagine if you wrote nucleated or you wrote linear, you would lose these 4 marks immediately. So careful analysis of the diagrams or the picture or the resource is very, very important. Now you know it's isolated, and now it becomes like a level 1 for you, or a low order question, because I know isolated large farms, they can farm on a large scale, they can use machines, they have privacy, you understand? So it's good for them, the profits they make for themselves. So all these commercial aspects come out now, and it's easy. But it's so easy to get this incorrect and you get that incorrect. All right? So as I would show you down here, you know all this. The farmer is his own boss. All right? He's his own boss. and therefore he's innovative, he can experiment, he can take his own decisions. You know all this. Lots of privacy. He's got his own space. He's got neighbors far away. Well, I hope he likes that. Laborers are more productive, right, because they're working, they're employed, they're using machinery, etc. Isolated farmsteads make larger profits. Machinery can be used on a larger scale, right? Small farms, problem of using these big harvesters, etc. But on this one, they are so easy to use and more effective, and your output is greater with machines. Okay. Traveling distance is minimized, because what happens here in many cases, the farm workers stay on the farm. All right? Farmer can practice soil erosion prevention. Of course, that's an option. I know many of you may look at that one and say, whoa, that doesn't seem to fit in so nicely. But remember, as memos, we try to give you as many options as possible. But we're saying here, because he is a commercial farmer, he'll know more about soil erosion and therefore take more steps. All right?
Dave, can we take a very short break before you carry on?
You sure? But the learner's okay with that?
Yes, they'll be fine. They just need to go get some water and some juice, and then they'll come back. Mindsetters, let's take a very short break, and I'll see you straight after this. Welcome back, Mindsetters, from that break. I hope you guys are still on par with Dave, and he's teaching you nicely there. I've been concentrating as I just listening to him, and it makes sense, but yeah, anyways. I hope you guys did see on our Facebook page, facebook.com/learnextra, that we have a mindset geography group. Make sure you join it and you share all your questions and all your knowledge about geography with the other mindsetters. You guys help each other there on that group. That's what that group is there for. And remember, we do have our competition, so keep liking that post, keep sharing and tagging yourself and telling us your favorite number from 0 to 9, and you might stand yourself a chance to win that very special Learn Extra handpad. So with all that said, I'll take it straight back today.
I'm sure you have regrets why you didn't do geography now, eh?
Not quite, but yeah.
Anyway, let's go on. I hear there's some questions for me, but I just want to finish question 3 first. I hate stopping things in the middle. All right, so we were on this, and the last thing we actually looked at was the advantages of these rural settlements, which was isolated. The next question, state 2 factors that could have influenced the site of this settlement. And this is where, learners, you have to be very careful about the action words. That's what I like to call it, the action words, because it brings the whole thing into the proper perspective. All right? Many learners will look and talk about the mountains in the back. Okay, they assume there seems to be a road on that side. You understand? And many things, and they don't look at the action words. Now, important. It says state 2 factors that could have influenced the site of the settlement. There's your word here. And that is why knowing your concepts. What is site? All right? I'm just going to have a little bit of water. You see age is catching up with me?
No.
Okay, the site. And some of you, when we notice this, give the situation factors. You talk about the mountains, you talk about the roads leading out. That is situation. Situation related to the factors around the settlement. And site relates to the exact piece of land. So we have to look at what's there. Okay, the physical factors, etc. And many people, because they just need 2 factors, could have influenced the choice, and they forget about the important word. So let's go through it again, learners. We're looking at the exact piece of land down here. Okay, one of them that's clear here we look at is flat land, because it's on the exact piece of land. So you can see the flat land here. Okay, what else? We look at the trees, which could be used for fuel. Is the trees on the farm? Yes. Okay, so we look at those things which are very definite, that's found in there. Remember, sometimes we may not identify stuff. And if we don't identify stuff, we can start assuming maybe this is a water source, or maybe this or this or this. You understand? But remember again, don't leave it blank, and remember, look at the action words. Use your highlighters when you're reading the question. Highlight the word site. Okay? So let's look at the answers for this. Let me get it again. All right, flat land. Can you see it here? Where we have it down here, and we notice that that is there. Okay? Soil fertility, that is an assumption. Obviously, it's a good assumption. It's to a certain extent geographically sound. Otherwise, people won't be farming there if the soil wasn't fertile. Fuel for trees. And we also got another one of land ownership. Okay, it's owning the piece of land. Maybe not totally there in terms of looking at the site, but we can't complain. If the memo has given us that, we welcome it. But these are your more correct answers here. Flat land, fuel for trees, and soil fertility. Can you see it? We identified 2 of these factors from the diagram. And I know I'm saying this 100 times, and we identified the action word and the concept known as site and not situation as such. Okay? Let's look at the next question. In spite of modern technology, pests are still a huge problem for farmers. Explain how pests affect crop production. I know the examiner has told you to look at the picture in order to answer that, and we see no locusts. Right, that was the instruction. You can get questions that are not totally related to the diagram, but also related to your knowledge that you have studied from your curriculum or in the class. Okay, so there come questions that are not related. So this one is definitely not related totally to the diagram itself. But you can answer it. It's actually quite a simple question. Okay, if I look at pests, they damage the crops. Okay, poor crop production. Okay, we're using pesticides, isn't it, on these plants, etc., to kill the insects. Where is that pesticides and things going into? It's going to the ground, polluting the water source, definitely affecting crop production. So in this case, how do pests affect crop production would be your major words here. Okay, and you can talk a lot about this. Okay, it becomes a more general. It actually becomes, to me, a low order question, because you studied it, it's straightforward, it's not really making reference to the picture. So you should score quite highly on this type of question. Okay? And if it's not there, don't try to look for it on the diagram. You've studied the diagram first before you looked at the questions, and you know yourself it's not there. Okay, let's look at it. Pests such as locusts, all right? They stalk the borers and destroy the crops for fruit and fruits, you know. All right. Leads to heavy use of pesticides, which increase the toxins in the soil. This is all that you studied already. Okay? Reduces crop production, because that's, he says, what effect does it have? In fact, we could take this and put this right on the top. Okay? This could be our first one, where it reduces crop production. I think to have gone here. My question seems to be slipping away quietly. All right. Okay, there we are. My technology is also improving. All right, so it reduces crop production. This could be the first one, because it says, how does it affect crop production? It reduces it. 2 marks actually for that. Okay? And then you can give other reasons like pests and locusts destroy the crops, the pesticides coming in. So actually you can score total for this question as such. Okay? Let's look at the next question, based on the same thing. Agricultural production, down here, makes an important contribution to South Africa. economy. Okay? We know that. Write a paragraph of approximately 12 lines on food security. Okay? Again, the concept, learners, what is food security? When there's enough food available for the population or the people to live a healthy lifestyle. I like a full one day, not that there's enough food. You understand? It also could cause malnutrition if there's only a certain type of food. So we need to know the concept. But that's not all. Evaluate the importance of promoting agricultural development in South Africa as opposed to importing agricultural products. This part seemed to have been forgotten. We actually have to do a comparison here between looking at importing and producing in the country. So our idea here should be, why is it better to produce in the country than bring it from outside? Obviously, you know, things like, because you don't bring from the outside, you produce in the country, you don't lose a lot of money from buying things from the outside, which is expensive in dollars, etc. Secondly, you have more resources, isn't it, for secondary activities, because agriculture allows that. Thirdly, by producing in the country, you're getting employment, isn't it? More people are employed in the farming sector. All right. By producing in the country, you want to move things around, isn't it? So infrastructure and roads have to be built to move things around. So all these factors you have learned. But the big problem here, learners, is that sometimes we just talk about why agriculture is good. You understand? We just talk generally. We don't do the comparison to the importing. Okay, let's look at the memo. It's quite a long one, this. Okay, if I looked at this, the answers also are like, it says the role of the South African government. Let me get back to my favorite color. The role of the South African government is to monitor the distribution and excess of food. Okay, but on the vague side, but the answer was accepted. But I like sufficient food can be produced to meet the demand for a growing population. Okay? Availability of food ensures peace and general stability. But more, I like this one. The need to import food from other countries at high costs is reduced. Now that's a direct comparison, okay? But you notice on top here, learners, all right? If I got, and I'm asking you for 6 factors, and you can only think of 5, why not take a chance and write a general one? Sometimes it can be accepted. Do not leave blank spaces. You never know, all right? So same things we discussed. Export of agricultural products can help earn foreign income. When we're producing so much that we have sufficient to actually export also. Remember that $1 million that's coming in is actually bringing in 10 million rand. I think that's around the currency at the moment. So it's a lot of money. So when we're exporting, we're bringing in a lot of the capital into our country. Improve balance of trade. Okay, we can have a more positive balance of trade because we're producing and selling instead of buying, helps create jobs, leads to development of infrastructure, what we've discussed. Raw materials are supplied for industries. We've discussed that already. Okay, where we can have more industrial development, more employment. Okay, hunger and starvation can be addressed. Not totally a direct relationship, but it can be done there. Okay? For me, it's hopping a lot today. Okay, so hunger and starvation can be addressed. But these are the direct comparisons. Okay, before I go on to question 4, Luni, you had some questions for me.
Yeah, now we've got more questions. Okay, we'll start with Rima Khado, and she's asking, looks like what are the effects of rural-urban migration on the rural areas and the urban areas?
Rural-urban migration on the rural areas and the urban areas. Of course, number 1, as I told you, learners, we need to work out what is rural-urban migration. Okay, so rural-urban migration. Migration is a movement. Okay, please note that people, where you make this mistake, you talk about rural-urban migration and rural depopulation. Rural-urban migration can be part of rural depopulation, but it is not the same thing. All right, this is a movement of people from rural areas to urban areas. Okay? What would be the effect? You must remember, learners, okay? What was my young lady's name?
Riri.
Riri. All right,
Yes.
Riri and other learners.
Yeah.
You must remember, people are moving from the rural areas to the urban areas. So the rural areas are losing people. One of the big effects, number one, would be businesses. I mean, you've got a business in the area, all right? And you've had all these rural people there, and they leave. What happens? You don't have customers. So things like businesses, okay, start to close down. Close down, eh? What else? People are leaving. Who's actually leaving also? It's more the younger people, around the 20s, 30s, they want to go. You understand? The older people are left. So what happens to productivity in terms of the farming sector? Productivity is also reduced. Productivity in terms of agriculture, etc., is also reduced. Okay, we even speak about getting so bad at times that we have ghost towns. Towns developing. All right? Okay, you know what's a ghost town, Looney?
A what?
It's a ghost town. A ghost town is where all the ghosts come in. Now I'm joking.
No.
Actually, a ghost town is when there's no activity, all right? And there's no investment happening, and these people actually move away, and the town actually dies. There's nothing much happening in the town. All right? Looney, should I take a break? Because I'm getting
Can we
old.
just take one more question?
Okay, sure.
Hey, Looney, please ask.
Sorry,
Dave-
oh, I thought there was a break now.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm getting old. So can I finish this question?
Oh, okay. You can
Because I'm
finish
always
the question.
forgetting the breaks,
Okay,
and I'm
you
taking
can finish
over
the
your
question,
role.
then we'll take
Okay,
a
these
break.
are some of the things that happen there. Okay, the age-sex ratio is changing in the rural area because now we'll have more females, all right, and older people. These are some of the answers that I have here. Okay, I can go on and on. Let's just give some examples with regards to the urban area. All these people are flocking to the urban area. Wasn't that pressure on the urban area? So can we just build houses, learners? Okay, we can't. So things like congestion, whether it's traffic, okay, I'm just going to put congestion, okay? And I'm going to put in, okay, I'm going to put in also down here informal settlements because people can't get houses, okay? I'm also going to put in informal settlements, okay? I'm also going to put in strain on facilities because there's so many people, massive amount of unemployment, and I'm going to stop after this, okay? Employment. So there's various factors, right? I think I'm overdoing my time here. It is time for a break, and we can go for that break, and we'll get back.
All right. Mindsetters, let's take a very quick break. Just a quick shout out to Amish, Shikash, Vusi, Tendi, Riri, and Giabet. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Let's take a quick break, and I'll see you straight after this. welcome back, Mindsetters, from that very short break. Tendi Bubbles Courage Maumela has asked me. I'll read this post and then I'll do what he says I must do. So the post says, hello, my darling Looney. Haven't told you, but I once had a dream the past few days, and that dream you were speaking, I think it's Chivenda. So he says, I must say, our Mindsetters, notwahani namusi, lesson ikona farahani, dia kolwa niko, difelwa dia nifunisa. So I hope, Tendi, you are happy that I did that for you. I know what I'm saying because he translates and says, hello, Mindsetters, how are you today? How is the lesson? I hope you're enjoying it. I love you more. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for exposing me because I'm closer and I can't read Venda. But yeah, I really tried. So Dave.
Welcome back, Dennis. Right. I hope that I gave you a few ideas. Unfortunately, due to time limitations, I can't give you all the other options. But please refer to your work there. Okay, there was another question, Looney.
Yes. Yes.
On the street patterns, I think you mentioned too.
It's from Rifletim Maz. Rifle Mtombenian is asking, please explain social and environment injustice.
Was there one on the street pattern? Since I have it there, I'm sorry to...
Okay. If C is the answer for question 1.1, why doesn't traffic flow easily at figure B? That is from Londangema.
Okay, I've gone back to it. Why doesn't traffic flow easy? It seems like a very organized pattern, eh? All right, but visualize this, learners, that this is part of the CBD. And you have all these intersections. So at these intersections, you will have little robots. Okay, there and there. Where is my pen not working? Okay, at each point. And sometimes you have one-ways. Okay, at each of these points you got robots. So there you travel, you stop at the robot. And you know, sometimes it's irritating when the person is driving slowly in front of you, and there he makes the green and it turns red, and you have to wait. And then you also have one-ways and one-ways. And sometimes you need to go around the road because your place is down here. You understand? And you come through down here. And what actually happens there? You can't go down this road. So it is actually, you'll have to go around, go this way, come this way, and then come back. So it's all the different intersections, the robots, the one-way streets, which make it hectic in a city. Go there during a busy period, no matter which part of South Africa you live, and notice how frustrating it can be when you keep stopping. So therefore, it creates more traffic congestion. I hope that answers your question. All right?
And
there was
then
another question, Looney.
Filtimas Mtombeni is asking, please explain social and environment injustice. These concepts are confusing.
I'm so happy that Ntombi, isn't it?
Yes.
Raised this question. Learners, your whole thing on geography and many of your high order questions, not all, are based on social, environmental, and economic injustice. Okay? So it's important to know this. I'm going to keep skipping till I come to the end of this question. All right? Let me go back here. So I'm going to extend the page so we can explain that to you. All right. Number one, social injustice. It can be found in every section, whether it's climate, whether it's fluvial, whether it's economic, whether it's settlement. All right. Social injustice. You know, there was a lovely article about the people, Maluleke tribe, I think, in the Kruger National Park, and I once discussed this article in my class. And in the past, they lived there, but during the apartheid era, they were moved out because the Kruger Park then took over. All right? Now, number one, they lived there, and they were removed from their homeland or their fatherland and their cultural terrain, etc. They were moved. That it would be considered a social injustice. It was a beautiful article. So it's affecting people. All right? They have to move from their traditions and various things which were important to them. They had to leave the land and go because it was going to be used for something else. They had the right of that land, okay, affecting people. All right? Now, if we look at the same article, okay, what actually happened there was that the nature reserve was conserved, okay? The animals were let free and the Kruger Park developed, all right? So, if we didn't allow the Kruger Park to develop, what was going to happen to the animals and the nature reserve, all right? We could destroy that. So that would be your environmental injustice. Injustice which deals with damaging of the environment, okay? Damage to the environment, okay? To environment. Okay, then you get one more economic injustice, and that's your economic injustice. All right? And this related to money, earnings, okay? Loss of land even, because you weren't paid for your land. So it deals with the money issue. All right? Okay, loss of money, etc. Now, just to give you that we don't only look at the economic injustice or all the injustices, we look at the justices. Now, when I gave you the example, these people who had the right to the land and they deserve to be on that land were forcibly removed and they were taken somewhere else. It hurt them terribly. All right? Maybe the environment was sort of preserved, but still it was wrong to move these people like that. All right? And then economic injustice, they got not much for their land, etc. Let's change that into a justice. When democracy came about, what actually happened? Negotiation was done with the Maluleke tribe. They negotiated, they discussed issues, and they said, it's wrong what happened when these people were removed. Let's create a justice now. And what actually happened was, they said to them, okay, they spoke to the tribe and said to them that, listen, we'll put you close by. We'll create employment in the nature reserve where you can become, because of all your experience, etc. You can come in and be sort of tourist guides. You can work in the nature reserve, and also you can live close by. So what happened there? Yes, social injustice, provided the people agreed, was brought in. What else happened? Economic justice was brought in because the people were earning and they were using the land, which was rightfully theirs, and no one had a right to take it away, but they were benefiting from the land. And environmental justice was happening because the Kruger Park was also being conserved, and nature and the fauna and flora was being put in place, and it was a lovely environment. All right? So we look at the injustices and the justices. Okay? Lots of this in South Africa. Remember, the apartheid era was a terrible time for many people. So geography poses a lot of things relating to injustices, whether it's social, environmental, or economic, and how a democracy is overcoming many of these issues. I hope that answers your question down there.
Thank you for that. And then we have another one from Vusi Kevin, and he's asking, what are the consequences of rural depopulation and their possible solution?
The consequences of rural depopulation?
Yes, and their
Remember
solution.
the consequences of rural depopulation, and when I posed it to you earlier, all right, I said that rural depopulation is the decrease in the population. Let me put it down here. Rural depopulation okay, is the decrease in the number of in rural areas. Okay? In rural areas. So it's a decrease in the number of people. One of the processes that could have caused rural depopulation was rural urban migration. The impacts will be basically the same. Okay, when we look at rural depopulation, where if people, there's decreasing number of people in the rural areas, businesses will close down, productivity of agriculture will be reduced, ghost towns will develop. You understand? So lots of the consequences are the same. Okay? Lots of the consequences are the same. Just that you need to note that we can't just say it's the same concept. Okay? We can't just say it's the same concept. I just need to undo quickly here. Okay? Because it is not the same concept. All right? This is part of that. So the consequences are more or less the same. Okay? It could have the same consequences on the urban area also. All right? Does that answer? I hope it answers your question. I think before we actually, maybe I'll take one more question, and then I'll go on to question 4.
Okay, last
question. I'm sure many
question.
of the learners want to look at many things also.
Yes. Last question from Shikash. He's asking, what are the disadvantages of industrial decentralization?
Industrial decentralization, eh? Okay. Now remember, what we're looking at the concept, remember in the old days, we had this industrial centralization, etc. Okay, it developed areas like the PWV, which is now Gauteng, or Gauteng South, all right? Then we had Durban Pinetown, we had P. Uitenhage, and we had Southwestern Cape. Okay, so we had a situation like this, where industries were situated in 4 core areas, all right? Now, industrial decentralization is moving industries away from these core areas to places like the IDZs, Industrial Development Zones, okay? So it moves things out of this area. That's industrial decentralization, which is actually not a bad concept. Because if you're moving it out to the growth points, what are you doing? You're developing other areas. And by developing other areas, okay, like your industrial development zones, etc., that are developing those corridors for development, okay, there's now happening with the Kuka project, etc., near East London, where they're building up more areas. All right, it's developing the whole country that is happening here. All right, notice I'm doing some magic. All right, I'm even doing magic here. Some things are just jumping. Okay, so what could be a disadvantage of this? There are not many, eh? But of course, these areas could lose their significance, okay, in being your major core areas, okay, because businesses would move out. I suppose environmental injustice, okay, because you're now developing in other areas, you're removing the vegetation, etc., okay, from these areas down here, all right? So those could be your possible things, all right? You're building industries, but there's more advantages of industrial decentralization, because you must remember all these areas have to be connected, so infrastructure develops, okay? Infrastructure develops. It also depends on the situation, because in the past, when they had the policy of industrial decentralization during the apartheid era, industries moved to the border areas of the homelands, etc. But what do? They move their own personnel or workers to those areas, and people did not benefit much in those areas. So it also depends on how the policy is being implemented. Industrial decentralization could also be things like, again, it comes to the environmental, where there's pollution. You understand, in these areas which were more free at that stage, lack of pollution, there's more congestion in those areas, okay? In terms of traffic and people, etc. But when we're looking at economic development, many people won't mind that. They want development happening, no matter if it's an environmental injustice. Does that answer your question?
Thank you
Yeah, I
very
hope,
much.
eh?
Thank you.
Okay.
I think we should carry on now.
Carry on. You will remind me about our
should take
intervals.
a
Learners,
break.
I've got a bad habit. I talk too much and I forget about the intervals.
Okay, let's take a break.
You see, we need to take a break. I'm good this time. We'll be back soon.
Mindsetters, thank you so much for your questions. We see you and we thank you. And thank you so much for listening to Dave and for concentrating, for writing down all the notes. Let's take a very short break and I'll see you straight after this. Welcome back, Mindsetters, from that break. As you know, we've been running this very nice spring school competition where you get to win yourself a nice Learn Extra hamper. Okay, so what we did is we told you to stop to pick a number from 0 to 9, and then when the clock stops, we'll collect all those people who've chosen the number, and then we'll send them into the lucky draw. And at 4 o'clock, you must watch that show to make sure if you haven't won. So what you're gonna do now is show you Dave. There's the likes there, and our last number is 8 on our likes. So Dave is gonna refresh so that you can stop the clock. Refresh, Dave.
You like to take over my program, eh?
So sorry,
And
so
there we
sorry.
are.
So we refresh, and it's still 8. Oh wow, okay, so Mindsetters, our lucky number is 8, so the clock has stopped. So if you did pick 8 as your number, make sure you watch at 4 o'clock because you will be sent into the lucky draw and you might win yourself that special Learn Extra hamper. So Dave, you can go back
Is
to your
8
lesson
your
now.
favorite number?
No, 2.
It's close to mine. Okay, let's get back, learners. I know there's one or two other questions, but question 4 relates to things like your development, all right, and your rural-urban migration, etc. So it's a nice question to do now, just to show you a few things. So let's look at question 4. Okay, refer to figure 4, which shows us rural urban migration and its impact on South Africa. So we're looking at rural urban migration and we're looking at South Africa specific. Now, I hope you guys have seen this one, eh? And I'm sure you guys would have picked up the error in this. Okay, and if we look here, okay, it shows you the dark gray as rural and the lighter one as urban. And when we're looking at that classification and we're looking at the level of urbanization of Gauteng, Gauteng seems to be the least urbanized. And you've done your studies and you know that is wrong. I could have changed this, but I wanted to highlight these things to you. And once again, I wanted to highlight that you interpret, don't just sit with the memo and the paper and learn it off like that. You make sure and you pick up things. I'll also be telling you how would we handle when there's errors like this in the diagrams. There's not many. I mean, human errors do happen. We can't blame anybody for it, but it does happen. Okay, so this is actually incorrect to a certain extent. How do we handle it? There are some questions here which will actually assist us in terms of how do we handle it. Let's look at the first one. Obviously, it's dealing with urbanization and rural-urban migration. The first question, define the term urbanization. Learners, lots of problems. Know the difference, and especially in this section, know the difference between the different concepts which seem very similar. Just like we had rural depopulation and rural urban migration, and we realized there's a difference that rural depopulation includes rural urban migration, which is a movement. In this case, we've got various things: urban growth, urbanization, urban expansion. And if we don't know the differences, we make careless errors which could affect our other questions that are known as our lead-on or scaffolding questions. And we get all that wrong. So we need to know, urbanization is actually the increase in the percentage of people, all right? Urban expansion is the physical expansion of the urban area. So we need to know those differences because it could really come back to haunt us, learners. So looking at this, number one, is the percentage. We have a clear percentage. If you go back to your notes, you'll see 50% or 60% of people in the country living in urban areas, 40% in rural areas. So it's a clear percentage. All right? Next question. And I'm going to do this. I know I said look at the diagram before that, but I'm going to show you some things of how we handle here. Identify the province with the highest rate of urbanization. Can you see it? Again, it's a lead-on question, learners. And if you don't know the concept first, you're going to mess it up. Okay, this was a problem. You would have studied your notes that, or in your classrooms, that Gauteng has the highest sort of rate of urbanization compared to any other area. All right? But when we looked at the diagram, it actually showed us that KZN had the highest urbanization rate compared to anybody else. Okay? If it's a percentage, of course, we could also look at Limpopo, because there's so many people, there's less rural, there's less and more urban in terms of percentage. Okay? So there's so many. Is it Limpopo? But you know it's Gauteng? All right? Which one is correct? This shows you it's this province. Now, what you could do in a question like this, don't leave this question out. All right? Do not leave this question out. You can state the one that you see there, all right, like Limpopo, etc. Or you can write Gauteng. Both answers will be accepted because it was a mistake. But I'm just advising you, all right? You write there. If you want to write Gauteng, you write no. You can actually write here. Key is incorrect. The answer is Gauteng, and it will be accepted. But don't leave it blank. Don't say, I can't answer because the key is wrong. You put one of the answers. Either way, although it's wrong, and the one that shows the highest level of urbanization, you put that one, although in reality it's not, it will be accepted, or Gauteng will be accepted. All right? In this case, because it was a wrong key, okay, you'll notice that your memo had Gauteng written down here. All right? Gauteng. But of course, if you wrote the other one, it would have been fine. Now, let's take the next factor on this. Name two pull factors that contribute, let me just do that again, that contribute to people moving from rural areas to urban areas. Learners, in some cases, we've had 12-mark questions on this. And what does the learner write? Let's take some things like this. He writes, crime. Let me undo this. There's some gremlins coming in here. He writes crime. Why is it doing that? Let me get my pen again correct. He writes crime. He writes education. Okay? He writes, let's take it, entertainment. These are things that you've studied already. Entertainment. All right? He writes various factors. Okay, you need your two factors. Unfortunately, learners, it's all wrong. And you may say, what, why? All we need to do is we need to focus on the pull factor. What's drawing the people to the urban area? Maybe some people like crime. All right? We don't know. So we could say, what is the pull factor? Less crime, I don't know whether that would be a real case. Of course, it's always a problem. Better. Okay, back here. Better educational facilities. Better entertainment facilities. That becomes a pull factor. So if you just wrote education or entertainment, it's wrong. Learners, these are simple questions. We need to look at the action word down here, which is pull. Okay, we say, what is the push factor? Then we'll say, too much crime, lack of proper educational facilities, lack of proper entertainment facilities. That would be a push factor that's pushing the people out of the rural area. Pull factor that's drawing them in. So please, learners, be very, very careful. You know these answers, but if you don't practice with past papers, you have problems there. Okay? Let's look at the answer down here, and you'll notice. All right, better employment opportunities. Can you see it? All right? Higher paid employment, improved standard of living. These are things that's drawing them in. They're seeing the city life, they're being pulled into it. Good transport, access to educational, health facilities. All right? Educational, health facilities, entertainment, it's excess. They've got these things. I hope you're getting this thing now, learners, that don't just write one word. No marks. Okay? Let's go to the next one. Refer to the cartoon identified in figure 4. All right, the cartoon identified in figure 4. Identify the urban problem due to urbanization highlighted in the cartoon. Please, practicing with cartoons also will assist you. All right? Let's look at what the cartoon is saying. The proposed freeway to remove traffic congestion was created by the previous proposed freeway to remove traffic congestion. Okay, it seems that freeway upon freeway was being built, isn't it? Freeway upon freeway, and it seems to be nothing is happening. So this was proposed to remove the other proposal, which was also improving on freeways, and all we did was make more freeways, and more freeways is creating more congestion, and it's not sorting the problem. So what is the major issue there? All right, obviously, it's traffic congestion. All right? Next one, and these are simple questions, learners. Comment on the cartoonist, on why the cartoonist disagrees. All right? Cartoonist disagrees with the way in which the problem is being solved. All right? Again, simple stuff. All right? I'm going to show you the memos quickly so I can get a few more of your questions being answered. Why am I not getting the... Let me just erase this. Right, and get back to this. Okay, freeways upon freeways are built, and they are not solving the problem of traffic congestion. Okay, they need to look at it. Again, it's leading on. If you didn't identify the problem of traffic congestion, you may not be able to answer the questions. Look what follows, learners. Suggest a sustainable solution. Again, an action word here, learners. Sustainable solution. All right? Something that doesn't only work for today, but will, on long-term basis, will continue to work to benefit the environment and whatever. Okay? A sustainable solution for the problem. You know this already, but you must know. Don't just write for today. Things for today, like for instance, I put in regulations for this period of time so that we can recover and there won't be much traffic congestion for now. We're looking at long term, something that will work. Let's take something like having proper public transport, which will encourage people to use that. Okay? Getting people to see the benefits of maybe cycling to work, health benefits, and also cutting down on the congestion. All right? So you're looking at various issues, staggering working starting times. These are long-term solutions. If you can do that, you're cutting down the amount of people on the road. For instance, this company start at 7 o'clock, those start at 7:30, those start at 8:30, so you got less people on the road. So these are long-term sustainable, and it has to be sustainable, not only for a short period of time. Okay? Let's look at some of the answers. All right, reducing population in urban areas by decentralizing industries, developing efficient public transport networks. Definitely sustainable measure, because people will use it. Less frustration of driving on those gridiron patterns. All right, so decentralizing of industries, as we mentioned down there. More stringent regulations monitoring public transport, which I believe is very important, that the quality does not drop. Our public transport has good quality, it's reliable, it's effective, because we don't want buses or any form of public transport that's not roadworthy, all right, because it's creating more problems for us. Staggered working hours, there we have the other answer here. Develop park and ride facilities. I just remember the one they had a few years back in eThekwini, Durban, where they had these little vehicles that you parked on one spot, you bought your ticket for the day, all right, I think it was known as a tuk-tuk or whatever, all right, and you were able to use the ticket to travel to various points, and from there, you went back, and it took you back to your parking area, you offloaded your stuff, you jumped on it again, but these things carried quite a few people in them, and they moved around the city, so park and rides. I think for the World Cup it was also used, where we park and ride, so it cut down the congestion. Charging cars to enter the CBD, all right, cycle lanes, encourage people to use cycles rather than use cars. So these are various options that are there for us to make a sustainable sort of solution, not something that's going to be short term. All right. Luni, there was one more question, I think, about IDZ or something of that sort. Wow. I do not want to disappoint that learner.
Okay. Here it is. Gino Aquino is asking, do we need to know all the details of the special development programs and industrial development zones?
And who's asking that?
Gino.
Gino, very important to know the concept of your industrial development zone and your spatial development initiatives. All right, very important to know that. There are various ones. There are examples in your textbook. I suggest you go over them to see how it works. Generally, in these type of questions, there is a little paragraph given to you or some information given to you on that. But it's nice to have your reading knowledge that you went in, especially things like the Cougar project, etc. But it's important for you because you'll be able to apply it in various areas. For instance, let's take our map of South Africa. What is the first thing? Your spatial development initiatives. You got a region down here. You got a region down there. You got the Western Cape here. You got Saldanha Bay there. And what actually happens is there's a road already in that area. So what do? We actually improve on the conditions of the road, make the infrastructure better, linking that area to Cape Town, okay? And then we actually encourage tourism, etc. in this area. We encourage development in that area. So what happens, that's why we talk about the spatial corridors, all right? From an area that's highly established, going into there, like Cape Town going towards Saldanha Bay. Then even down here in Eastland, we have various projects. Now, what actually can be here is that this is your spatial development initiatives. And we've got centers that move from here towards Richards Bay. It links up the area. So people say we'll move there because it's nice. It's an area that's developing. Okay, there's incentives for us there. And it also links up different places. That's why we talk about spatial corridors. In fact, we can go right across towards the other side where we've got Walvis Bay. So all these transport routes, etc., have been built to actually make those places more accessible, okay, and also development. Then let's just create something here. All right, let's say that, hey, we say this infrastructure is here. There's our little, let's create this one. Let's work with this one down here. There's my nice road structure here. All right. And I say, but we have this and there's a distance between the two. Let's create a completely new industrial zone down here. Because it's between that, the infrastructure is there. We can actually link up the both areas and they create a new industrial area between the two centers that have been developed. So spatial initiatives and industrial development zones are very linked. Here we have spatial initiatives where the roads have been linking one area to another to encourage development in the other area. And industrial development zones are new industrial areas that happen there. Now, if you can understand that, your different projects, all right, won't be so different in terms of answering them. It'll be the same sort of thing. So go over a few like the KUKA project, etc. Just do a few, and you'll be able to apply your knowledge on any other IDZ or SDI. Okay? I hope that answers your question.
Can we take one more?
One more.
Lira is asking, how can we prevent food insecurity?
Food insecurity, I even had one of them down here. All right, let's just maybe extend the page. You know what's food security, and I know we're very limited. I'm going to answer, make sure and try and get this question through.
Okay.
All right, I'm seeing the time today. I'm sure the producer will be very happy. All right, food insecurity. Okay. You know that you must have enough food, all right? Sufficient food for people of the country, etc. I'm just going to go quickly to live a healthy lifestyle, all right? My writing is getting damaged now because I'm trying to rush. Okay, for them to live a healthy lifestyle. So what happens here? It's all based, again, you've done this before, all right? You want to have enough food. So number one, what would you do? You'd create a better agricultural system, a better farming system. Okay, so you'll encourage things like commercial farming. Okay, where they'll be producing more. All right, another one, it came out in last year's paper. Learners, you got that subject guideline, all right, exam guideline, you must know. And then you got things like genetically modified foods, which can grow under conditions, modified foods. Sorry, our time is gone, and I'm very sorry about that. But there's various things. Building of dams where there's lack of water, so farming can happen. Okay, improving soil fertility, educating farmers, but all is based on improving the food supply in the country and also creating more employment in order for food security to happen. I'm really apologize, learners. I think our time is up. I've really, really enjoyed it with you, and I hope you learned a lot. All the best.
Okay. Thank you so much to Dave, and thank you to Mindsetters for tuning in. Until next time, we're out.